Brief or jammer?
Brief.
100 breast or 100 fly? Welcome to the Ask a SwimPro show. My name is Ksebati, co-founder and CEO of MySwimPro, and I'm joined by the one and only Michael Andrew. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. Yeah, it's so good. I actually just got back out of the surf. So now that I'm home again, I get to get back into some routine and catch some waves.
Right on. So when you're not catching the waves, you were just recently in Hungary at the ISL. I like the background, and NY Breakers. Give us the rundown. What was that experience like?
It was crazy. So obviously it's the first time anything like this has been done. Obviously the first time it's been something that needed to be done. For me, going into ISL, I really didn't know exactly what to expect. Obviously we've been receiving the protocol and we had a lot of updates in terms of what the bubble would look like and the island. And I've been to Hungary, I've been to Budapest multiple times, so I know the city really well. So I was looking forward to it all. And then once we got there, it was pretty interesting. So we were tested every 5 days. So like deep nose COVID tests, like quite uncomfortable, mask everywhere. We couldn't dine at the same tables as our teammates. But we still found a way to create a really strong community. And it was cool to see, even though we were kind of, we had our certain restrictions to make it healthy and obviously viable for us to compete. The athletes took it with stride and made the best of it. And so the community was great. The racing was even better. It was nice to have some concrete time in the pool where we were able to, between competitions, train. So it was a bit of an adjustment, but one that was easy to make because, as elite athletes, all we need is good food, place to sleep, and a pool. And we had all of those. So it was pretty nice.
Right on. And so what was the experience like, with top athletes all over the world, all together at the same time? I mean, I can only imagine what that's like.
It was cool. So it was a bit interesting. So I noticed in past competitions, we get to do everything together, and we kind of we'll go out in the city, we'll go for meals together, we can sightsee and things like that. What I noticed now is all the teams kind of stuck to their group. So New York Breakers kind of stayed together, Iron stayed together. So our teams were really tight, but we didn't get to really do a whole lot of mingling with our friends, like national team athletes and buddies from other teams, because we were either in different hotels or different schedules, different times. Our pool slots for training sessions, gym slots, we're all in separate gyms, and we weren't able to cross paths and cross contaminate. And so because of the way the scheduling and stuff was all laid out, it made it hard. You have to be really intentional to hang out with anyone that's not on your team. But I think it was pretty cool to know that we're all at least in the same area, getting ready for a common goal, which was just racing fast when it was our turn, of course.
Right on. Sweet. So tell me what it's been like back here in the US training. What's been the vibe? How you training? What's the program look like?
Yeah, so coming back from Hungary, where everything was catered to, everything was set up, it's been a weird adjustment. So I've only been home now for a week. I got back last Monday. Got to watch finals and everything from home. Training's been different. Getting back into the routine was hard. I think for me, obviously, I just had to adjust to the time zone again, so get through jet lag. So I'm finally back on track, which is nice. And then I made sure, because I was gone for so long, I wanted to catch up with friends, do some surf, just hang out and relax a little bit. But now as we get back into the work and the swing of things, the trick is going to be scheduling time. We're fortunate enough to have a really good relationship with our YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club in Solana. And so we've got pool time. It's not the same time every day, but we make it work. And so we're basically now going into the next 7 months or less of just pure swimming focus, kind of going back to the roots and not thinking as much about I don't know. I think there's a lot of distractions this past year. Some healthy distractions, a lot of community was built, good relationships, but it took away from the swimming. And that's what I noticed was part of my issue going into Budapest is I was really strong physically, but I didn't have the endurance in the water. And so we're now going back to basically training for that 200 IM, putting in a bit more yardage, still USRPT, still very specific, but the focus is a little more endurance, longer time in the pool, so that my body can now handle and finish those races when it comes time. I'm excited to just pure on buckle down for the next couple months and break some world records, God willing.
Woo! So let's talk about training a little bit more detail. You mentioned USRPT. This is something that you're pretty well known for. So kind of break that down for someone who's like, what is USRPT?
What is USRPT? Yeah, so USRPT, acronym for Ultra Short Race Pace Training. Back in 2009, I believe it was, we became good friends with Dr. Brent Rushell, who's the founder. Like, this is his child. And over the years, we've kind of morphed it a bit to cater to what we train for. But the idea behind it, and if I was to put it into one word, it's all about the principle of specificity. So the more specific we can be to our race, the higher the likelihood of us coming to race and our body just naturally outputting what we've programmed it or coded their mind to do. And so it's through these repetitive actions that we're able to race confident, knowing that we've conditioned ourselves to be there. And so what we'll do is we'll take an event, say, just to make the math easy, like 100 freestyle. We'll be doing 25s at 100 pace. So we always go about 1/4 of the distance. So like if we're 200s, it's 50s, 100s, we're 25s. We'll break down the time. And the goal is obviously we use our personal best, or if you're shooting for like a national record or world record, things like that, you can break that time down, split it up. If I'm wanting to go under a minute in my 100 free, I have to now hold 15 seconds for each 25. And then once we go over that time, you create your neural pathways, you break down, you rest, you go again. So it's all about that repetitive movement. And what we found is really interesting is because of the way our brain works, we code these things, but it's also when you train using multiple different like tools, kicking, underwater, like other things, your brain kind of doesn't know what to grab and it jumbles a lot. Obviously you can create a strong vessel, but a lot of the times your body's not going to know exactly how to replicate it when it comes time to do it. And so that's essentially what we're doing with USRPT, is just training myself to happen just habitually so that it just outflows.
Yeah, nice. So I know you do a lot of events and you're good at a lot of events. So like I understand specificity. So like how much are you doing of each particular race? Like is in one day, 200 IM, the next day, 100 fly? Like how do you break it up?
Yeah, so we balance it out pretty evenly. We do break it up. We have like a few kind of ground rules. We typically do our 200 pace work in the mornings, and then we'll do our 100 pace and fast work in the evenings. And so we try and even it out so we don't want to be doing like 6 sessions of 200 pace and only like 3 sessions of 100 pace. So we try and manage that. But as far as like training for a specific event, what we often will do is we'll look at whatever competition we're training for. So right now the focus is Olympic trials. Typically it's like a pro series or something like that. And for a few months out, we'll be like, okay, this is what events I have on this day. And we'll map it out. And then we'll try and train those events in that lineup order. That way my body kind of has an idea of like, okay, like I'm going to go from butterfly to backstroke to freestyle. And so it's all about a little bit of a prep going into that meet so that when it comes time to do the meet, there's no real shock on the system. But apart from that, we try and keep it relatively balanced. I think going into the season now, we'll probably front load a bit more on the 200 pace. So keep the base a little heavier. And then as we get closer to it, we'll whittle down to more speed work, more focus on the 100 pace and the top end speed, because that's something that's really easy for me to build because I'm naturally very quick, but I know that my challenge is obviously getting that endurance back.
Yep, totally. Fast twitch. Speed is the name of the game. So when you're breaking down like a specific a race that you want to go fast in, is it always okay, this is my best time and I'm trying to go half a second faster, or is it always like this is the world record, or this is like my ideal pace that I'm trying to hit?
Yeah, so what I found, and we kind of went back and forth with this for a while when I was younger, is I used to target a national record and we would be like, okay, these are the paces I need to hold in order to get this record. But I actually mentally, it was hard because I knew I hadn't really gone that time yet. So I found it much easier to train at a pace that I knew that I could make. And there was something psychologically, I think that when I'm training at a time that's maybe a little slower, still my best, but not like a national record time, I almost hold faster repeats. And so even though my make time may be a 15 instead of like a 14, I find it easier to then hold like 14 twos, even when I don't really need to be going that fast. So my body has like this level of comfort where there's like a bit of a buffer. And so that's part of the psychology behind USRPT, is figuring out how do you push yourself inside of a session to look towards times that you're building. I think it's very individual. I think some athletes will do better setting the bar really high and trying to get a record time versus their personal best. But a lot of the science in USRPT has kind of urged us to say, like, just focus on what your best is. So like every time you swim a personal best, then your time will adjust. And so incrementally you'll, get faster and faster throughout the season.
Cool. Well, now you're at a point where you're pretty much knocking on world records. So, that's kind of the pace I guess you got to hit.
Exactly. Yeah.
What kind of training are you doing outside of the pool? Surfing, dryland, like what are you doing?
Yeah. So this last season was a bit of an experiment. We started a lot more stuff in the weight room. I think things are always subject to change. I think that's what's been really exciting about my journey as an athlete, and the fact that my dad's my coach. We do everything very family-based. We're constantly looking for better ways to do things. And so we're dabbling in the like Olympic lifting. So just like cleans, squats, things like that, more focused than on even body weight pull-ups, stuff like that. That's relatively applicable because we obviously, the way we swim being so specific, we don't want to break the muscles down so much that I can't hold pace in the pool, because that's always going to be the most important for us.
Right.
And so it's tricky finding a way to break down and create growth without it affecting the times. And that's something we still have yet to like really figure out. But outside of lifting and those kind of activities that are more swim focused, I'm very active, like just playing volleyball with friends, a lot of surfing. Like if there's a free morning or an evening and the surf is like half decent, I'm out there. It's literally a 30-second walk to one of my main beach breaks here, D Street. And so I love being able to go out, even if it's like a 30-minute surf, just paddle out quickly, catch a few waves, come in. And so that's something that I've always done. And I remember when we first moved here, I would be out there for hours. But the tough thing was that destroyed me in the pool.
I was going to say.
I really suffered for it, And so I'm going back now to like a little more of a healthy relationship with it and not overdoing all of the stuff, thinking I find myself having a lot of FOMO, being like, oh, I'm going to miss that wave of the day. And that's not really necessary.
So are you going to be like, is after the pro swim career, there's a pro surf career? Is that what I'm hearing?
That would be a dream. Even if I could just be like a free surfer and just travel the world for a surf company and like hang out with all my friends, that would be sick. But we'll see one day.
Well, you're setting yourself up for that. I mean, in terms of like working with other companies and being a professional athlete, I mean, you've now been a pro swimmer for longer than a lot of, older, like people who are older than you. You've been a pro longer than a lot of these guys and girls out there.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're knocking on like a decade as a pro. What's that been like? Any shout outs to some of the sponsors?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So very fortunate. When I was young, I had a lot of success. National records was kind of my thing. I was known as the kid that could break multiple in one weekend. And because of that, we got a lot of attention, some of it good, some of it bad. And then companies started to like support the journey. I'm really fortunate now to be working with some incredible companies that I've been with for quite a while. And the way they aid my whole journey and support my family has been amazing. But it's fun too, because I realize there's only so much you can do as a swimmer. And I think I've always had a very kind of forward thinking, like the way we train is forward thinking, the way we deal with things, just we do it differently. And so I like being an outside the box thinker and working with brands that love to challenge the mold. And a company that I'm working with now, they make me think of that brand that really, they stand out because they do everything differently and they have results, they have success with it. And so ever since I've been using their product, I don't have to like try and sell it, because it's a brand that is so incredible and at the top of their field already. And those are the kind of things that I love doing. And same with working with Adidas and everything. It's like, these are the type of people that I want to be working with. And, you know, it makes the journey a bit more fun.
Totally.
Also
And
affordable.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's amazing to have, you know, people and companies that can support you. What's it been like now as a pro swimmer for like that period of time to see the sport evolve? Because you're in a position where, like, you know, you're growing up and the sport is growing up like with you.
Yes.
And I mean, you were
Right.
at ISL and like all these different opportunities. What's that been like, kind of seeing the sport change?
It's pretty cool. Like, to be at the forefront of it is amazing. I feel like I don't know what I've done to deserve like the kind of exciting journey we've had already, and the fact that it's only getting started. So like, I'm really just grateful for all of it. It's pretty cool to see Constantine's vision as he comes into creating ISL. So for those of you who don't know, Constantine he's the investor of ISL. It was his brainchild. He's the one who's really funding it and getting it off the ground. And so it's cool to see someone come along to have that kind of vision, and the funds to back it, because there's really never been anybody to do it and to challenge the old status quo. And I see athletes, swimmers, minds changing towards the way things have been done. It used to be very common to just see a lot of negativity around the idea of being a pro swimmer and it being really sustainable, being able to create a family and actually support your family with swimming was difficult if you're not Michael Phelps. And so now with ISL and things like this in the works, we have so many more doors opening to marketing opportunities, companies that want to invest in the athletes and the teams. And then two, you have more opportunity to race. And the more you race, the more money you make. Obviously, you know, not everyone's going to be Caleb Dressel making 300,000 in 6 weeks, but there's more money to go around, and that's pretty cool to see, and just to be in the front of.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And you're like right at the forefront, and I'm not that much older than you. So it's been fun to like grow up myself and see the sport evolve and see how different people can contribute.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your training in the pool, out of the water. Let's talk nutrition. I know you mentioned I know that your low sugar diet and keto, and just kind of like, how did you go about those choices? Because obviously, you know, you are what you eat in that expression.
100%. No, so it's what we've realized, and we realized this early on, and I'm fortunate because this is all my parents. Like, I've never been one to branch much outside of the physical realm, like training and stuff. Like, I love focus on like, how do you get stronger? But I never really thought, oh, well, what about like the stuff I put in my body? And so I was like, oh, I can be on a seafood diet. If I see it, I eat it. As long as I don't eat too much candy, you know, it's like this thing.
I've been there too.
100%. And it's like, you know, as swimmers, we can get away with it, but your body will catch up and you'll see a performance decline because of the way that our nerve endings need to be repaired. Glycogen needs to be restored. You know, it's really interesting and fascinating to see now that there's studies coming out, and that support a high fat diet, low carb. I try and stay away from carbs as much as possible. This past season has been a bit of a wonky one, just because I was like, oh, what are we really training for like right now? So like, I'll eat an extra piece of toast and have a donut here and there. So it's like, whatever. But you know, when we look back at it, I can see a correlation in my recovery time. And that's one thing that's been so cool about being keto is, as a keto athlete, you see benefits in the way that the body processes oxygen. So in theory, we can hold our breath longer. A lot of the Navy SEALs have been keto adapted because when they dive on, I'm not sure if I know my dad dove in the Navy in South Africa. And when the divers would dive on mixed gases, because they weren't fat adapted, there's a certain way that the oxygen would process, and they create embolisms and stuff like that. And so now they're seeing all these benefits of being keto. Obviously, we recover quicker, brain health is better, skin is healthier, all sorts of things. And so it's like, well, why not give this a shot? And so we've been dabbling with it for maybe a year and a half, 2 years now. And it's been amazing. But the hard thing is finding proteins or pre-workouts that support the keto diet. And so what we came across UCAN, I was using it for quite a while before we even partnered with them. And what I noticed is because of the super starch technology, the way that the carbohydrate is cooked, it doesn't spike your insulin. Therefore, there's no essential crash. And the fact that there's no sugars in it, there's not that same spike. And so you get this long, sustainable energy. And then once that superstarch basically runs out, because it is a carbohydrate, I will then continue to fuel off of ketones. Now, this was all theory before we really tested it, but then the more we used it over time, we saw that there was actually validity to what we were doing, and it made so much sense. And I felt it in my workouts. I felt it. I could do 75s at 200 pace. I could go longer sessions. I mean, there was a point where I was swimming 5K, like so 5,000 yards at pace, 200 pace, and not dying at all. Like, could just go. We did this for like 5 weeks, and I was like, what is happening? And a lot of it was because I got in a consistent routine of taking my super starch, using the hydrate, and then following it with the protein afterwards, and the body really did the rest. And so that was really interesting, because I remember growing up younger when it was like I would just try and get through things, and I always just felt physically dead. So what you eat really, it affects everything, because if you can't properly restore and refuel your body, all the work you put in is for nothing. And it's been pretty cool to have UCAN help me along with that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you just said 5,000 at 200 pace. I'm like, holy crap. That's, woo!
Yeah, it was brutal. It's been a while since I've done that. So, but I'm looking forward to getting back to it.
Yeah. So in terms of like practical, like what are you using at competitions to stay hydrated, fueled? I mean, and for context, like, I mean, even though you race a lot of different events, I mean, this is common for swimmers at any kind of competition, age group masters, you got like 4 events lined up. Like, how do you
100%.
stay sharp all the way through all those races?
Yeah, so it's a challenge. I think it's a culmination of things. So what I noticed is you have to come up with a routine that works best for you. And so I always found that what I love, and it'll sound like an advertisement, and it'll even look like an advertisement because I'm wearing UCAN, but I stick to all the same products that are made from a company. But what I love is they all do the same job, and they all aid each other. So when we go to a meet, before I start racing, I take a super starch. The super starch is like, that's my main one that I like cannot do without. So it gives me the lasting energy throughout a session. If it's been like more than an hour and a half, 2 hours, I'll take another one, and it kind of pushes me through. But even outside of that, if I'm hungry, we've got super starch bars. The bars are small, they taste good, easy to put in the bag. And then I use hydrate, and that's really more just to make drinking water more fun, because I've never been a good water drinker, and I've never always like focused on my hydration, but the hydrate's just an easy way to make it taste nice. And I follow up each session with protein, because, you know, the more protein you can have, you can rebuild. Obviously with being keto, there are claims in science to having too much protein can kick you out of ketosis. So we don't overdo it, but whatever's excess, the body will remove anyway.
Nice.
But outside of that, it's just, those are the kind of snacks that I keep with me, is the UCAN bars, UCAN hydrate, and then my super starch goes with me everywhere.
Nice. I like how you said makes water more fun.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's relatively boring.
Drink that water, add some. Okay, I like it. I like it. So kind of wrapping up here, some advice for the swimmers listening who maybe they don't have access to a pool right now. Maybe they got to go book it. Maybe their team, instead of 2-hour workouts, they're doing an hour, 30 minutes, who knows?
Dang.
So it's a really challenging time, and it's not going to really change here for the next 6 to 12 months. So what advice do you have to kind of just stay fit, mentally strong, all that?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is if there's things that are stopping you from doing a certain task as a swimmer, obviously, you know, we're made up in the elite world, we're made up of more than just the training. So there's the physical, there's nutrition, there's mental and emotional. And so I think it's really important now, if you can use this time, if you've never watched race footage, if you've never studied your sport, created goal times, created goals, like detailed analysis, things like that. I think that's really helpful to keep the mind awake and keep you also excited. Like, I always know whenever I watch video back, especially if I'm watching footage of Caleb's races, I'm like, dang, I want to work hard, because I got to beat this guy someday, you know? And so those type of things are really motivating. And I also think it's important to not look at any opportunity to train as lesson. I think if you can go into each session, even if it's only an hour a day versus your regular 2 or 3 hours or whatever you used to have, I think being very intentional with what you do have will go a long way. Because you'll see a lot of athletes who will take that hour and just kind of like poo-poo it and let it slide. And then they'll come back later on in the season and be like, oh man, why is it so hard to get back into the groove? And it's like each day you kind of fall off farther and farther. And so there's things we can do to keep it going. But outside of that, try and make it fun. I think, at home workouts, they can be boring over time, but there's ways to make it creative. Even if it's just body weight stuff, there's a lot of things we can do to stay mobile, keep our streamline tight, so that when you do get back into the pool, it's a much easier road back to where you were. But it's unfortunate. It's really sad. I think it's tough. I feel like pools are one of those things that health-wise could stay open and we'd be all right. But I get the concern and I understand that, precautions need to be taken. And it's just interesting. I mean, it could be worse, but it will pass just like most things. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, totally. It'll pass, and be thankful for your health and do the best that you can.
Exactly.
So the final thing we're going to do is we're going to play a game of this or that. Are you ready? 10 questions, this or that. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Surfing or cycling?
Oh, surfing 100%. Yeah.
Sugar or super starch?
Super starch. Sugar kills me.
Brief or jammer?
Brief.
100 breast or 100 fly?
100 breast.
Long course or short course?
Long course any day.
Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, that's tough. Pancakes.
YouTube
pancakes.
Or Instagram?
I spend more time on Instagram, but I need to post more on YouTube.
Yes, we look forward to that. We'll link that in the description. All right. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Card game or board game?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with cards. I like card games.
And the final question, international travel or domestic travel?
International, 100%. I love flying long distance, and I love cultures. Like, there's so many different cultures that we tend to not even think about. So I enjoy experiencing things internationally.
Totally. And what an incredible experience you've had the last 5-10 years traveling all over the world. It's an incredible journey, and we appreciate everything that you share online, including your YouTube channel. We want to see more of it.
Thank you.
So we'll make sure
I'll keep it coming. I got some videos in the pipeline, so I'm excited.
Awesome. We'll make sure we link all of Michael's stuff in the description below. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. And thanks again, Michael, for joining us for an episode of the Ask a Swim Pro show.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Later.